What is going on, everyone? This is the Movie Maniac. Let's get this thing started. This is Friday the 13th, the final chapter, and here we are. I've done reviews for 3, 5, 6, and 7, and here's 4. So this one is long overdue. The final chapter, you know, if somebody approached me and just said, hey, give me one movie with Jason Voorhees in it, where I don't want to go through the franchise, I just want to have an understanding of what this series is about, I'd recommend the final chapter. This is the fully realized version of what all of these movies are trying to do. This is also another one of those movies where if somebody put together a top 25 best slashers ever list, this would be on it. There are actually little bits of this movie that's separated out from the others of the series. Like, for instance, Crispin Glover's character is just so unique and he's hilarious. That dance scene, whoa. You're never gonna forget that. Honestly, there's no one else in this series that leaps out at me, I think, like he does in here. I mean, like, they got lucky. Crispin Glover was at that point in his career where he would do this kind of movie. He gives it his own flavor, that's for sure, and I'm all about it. I think they tried to recreate this in A New Beginning with Violet's dance. She's got a crazy dance. You should watch that review I did if you haven't already. Then you have Corey Feldman as maybe like a 10-year-old kid in this movie. He makes all these really intricate masks, and I think he's supposed to be like a young Tom Savini. And Corey Feldman, I know he gets knocked on a lot by people, but he's actually a good actor, so having him in this movie is definitely a strength. It is a strength to have Corey Feldman in this movie as a child actor, because again, he is good, and then you also have Crispin Glover in it as well, so I mean, you're really starting to stack things up here. And this has Ted White as Jason. I think he's one of the best Jasons, hands down. If you like what Kane Hodder did in the franchise, you like what CJ Graham did in Jason Lives, I think you're probably gonna really like Ted White too. And Tom Savini's back. I mean, like, yeah, some of his stuff got censored out pretty good here, but you know what, at the same time, this has one of the best Jason deaths out of the entire series. That end where his head slides down the machete, like, that's incredible. You're never gonna forget that. All the different characters in this movie are interesting enough to like kind of always keep things moving forward, where you have Crispin Glover and his friend, and they're the single guys, and they're there with the couples, and then what do the single guys have to do? Now there's twins in the mix that they run into, and now the twins are an option. So now you have the twins in the mix, right? And then you have this guy hitchhiking who's hunting down Jason, and I mean, like, I think that's a great thing to throw in the film, because I think you could do an entire movie based around that kind of character. But this really does take everything that the first 3 set out to do, and it just seems as if it all understood it on a different level. Like, it had a sense of clarity with the final chapter. The pacing's getting better because now we're moving further along into the 80s. Jason Voorhees looks awesome here. The script does a pretty good job balancing out all of these different characters, because remember, you've got Corey Feldman and his family, then you've got the hitchhiker guy, then you've got the teens going in there to party, and it's like there's just all of this going on so quickly in this short runtime that it never really feels like we get scatterbrained with all of these different people running around. It never feels like somebody got shortchanged and they didn't get enough screen time. Like, it's all adequate. And I would say too that starting it off in the beginning of the movie where they go into the hospital, I remember as a kid, for some reason I would always confuse that hospital scene appearing in Halloween 2, which obviously it doesn't. But that's a great scene that they threw in there in the beginning. If you end up watching these movies back to back, they really do flow into this, almost like this could actually be where they seal things off. So this has a very definitive ending to it. I think that that's another thing I like about this, is it really does feel like a really insulated movie. You know, some of the other ones, like if you randomly watched part 5, you might be a little lost, I think. Even if you just watched part 6 and you've never seen any of the other movies, I still think you might be a little confused as to, wait, who's Tommy Jarvis and what's going on over here, and like, how do we get... Whereas with the final chapter, you can go into this one and enjoy it on its own. This is well directed. I mean, this has got a lot of things about it that check the box. The only thing I would have maybe as a complaint would be, I kind of realize it's not even really till what, Jason Lives, where we actually have kids show up at Camp Crystal Lake. I mean, this is a minor gripe, and I'm nitpicking. I'm just looking for things that maybe would really drag this movie down. But again, you're also evaluating it as a slasher. You're not going into it like a Christopher Nolan film. This is a different set of expectations that you would have, you know, so you have to look at it through that lens. Honestly, this is one of those movies you can throw on once a year. You'll always have a great time with it. It's got a lot of TNA. It's got a lot of heavy-duty kills. It's got a lot going on to grab your attention and keep it running through the end of the movie. And I just honestly, I'm gonna tell you guys, I think this one is a 7 out of 10. This is what Friday the 13th is all about, and it's all in one movie. I love this character. Honestly, I would give the character a 10 out of 10. The movies, I know that's a little different. And also, I know there's gonna be some people that probably watch us and are like, wait, you gave this movie a 7 out of 10, but you're telling me it's in the top 25 best slashers of all time? Like, why aren't you giving it a 9? And, you know, I don't know, do I have to create my own rating scale for slashers? Fine. As a slasher, it's a 9 out of 10, if that makes you happy. But you get my overall point with this and how I've taken this in. You know, I watched them all in middle school. I did this where I rented all of the Friday the 13th films. I'd spend every Wednesday night at my grandma's house, and she would take me to school the next morning, and so I would, the night before, watch every single movie. I did this however many movies there were at the time. I guess there were 9 of them back then. And so, yeah, I guess I spent 9 weeks straight. Once that week, I would pop one of these things in, and I got through the franchise. And I loved doing that. You know, I talked about that in the last video with the Friday 13th Part 3D review. And, you know, getting to this one, it really did feel like a payoff. I'm really grateful for those memories where I got to watch these at my grandma's house. That's just really special. You know, you look back on those times with a lot of fond memories, and I think that, like, the final chapter, going back to it, which by then, we were already well out from when this movie was released, but there's just like layers of nostalgia with some of these films, and the final chapter is no exception. Honestly, if you have people that are afraid to give this movie like a 7 out of 10, like, remind them that this is Friday the 13th, it's Jason Voorhees, it's a slasher, you're looking at it with a different set of criteria than you would something else, right? So you have to judge it on how did it perform. Alright guys, so what do you think of the final chapter? Is this your favorite in the franchise? Do you agree that this is also the best made movie in the franchise? Sound off below. Most of you already know the drill, but for those who don't, make sure to smash that notification bell. Like, comment, and subscribe so you can stay inside the mind of a movie